The morning fog was wrapped in the roar of an airplane taking off. At the exact moment it pierced the clouds, I pushed the signed termination notice across the mahogany table toward Arthur. He had been the estate manager of this house for 7 years. From the very first day, Liam and I moved into this Westchester County marital home. It was Arthur who wiped the dust from every window, tended to every climbing rose in the garden, and managed Liam's daily routine with flawless precision. I thought he would take the paper calmly, pack his bags, and leave. Instead, his knees buckled, and he dropped straight down onto the cold marble floor. He looked up at me, his lips trembling for a long time before he finally forced out a single sentence. That sentence was like an icicle in the dead of winter, piercing straight through my heart. I stood frozen, a chill creeping up my spine layer by layer, stealing the very breath from my lungs. At 4:17 a.m. that morning, I had woken up. The space next to me in bed was empty. The mattress was completely cool, leaving only the faint floral scent of laundry detergent mixed with the chill of the early hours, drifting through the air of the master bedroom. I stepped barefoot onto the cashmere rug. The soft fibers wrapped around the coldness of my soles as I shuffled step by step toward the hallway. A sliver of warm yellow light spilled from beneath the study door, accompanied by hushed voices. It was Liam. And Arthur. I lightened my steps, pressing my ear against the cold wooden door. I could not make out complete sentences, only catching fragments of words. Packed and ready. Nothing will go wrong. She will not notice. Their voices were kept incredibly low, as if afraid to disturb the stillness of the dawn, yet every word drilled directly into my ears. I did not push the door open. I did not make a sound. I just stood there for a moment before quietly retreating back to bed. The chill of the comforter wrapped around me as I stared at the crystal chandelier on the ceiling. It gave off a cold glint in the dark, just like it did 7 years ago when Liam and I picked it out. Beautiful, but entirely devoid of warmth. Married for 7 years, from 23 to 30, the best 7 years of my life had been drained into this house, drained into Liam. I had majored in interior design in college, but I only worked at an architectural firm for 6 months before Liam begged me to stay home. He said, "I will take care of you. You don't have to answer to a boss to make a living." He said a house only feels like a home when you are in it to give it life. I believed him, and that belief lasted 7 years. In those 7 years, I transformed from a girl who could haul drafting boards across construction sites into a full-time housewife who needed Arthur to help her pay the utility bills. Everything in the house was managed by Arthur. He knew better than I did exactly what temperature to iron Liam's shirts. He knew exactly how much cream Liam took in his coffee. He knew exactly which suits Liam needed to pack for a business trip. I used to think it was just him being dedicated to his job. Only now did I sense that tiny, unsettling wrongness. It was like a fine needle hidden inside the lining of a coat. You do not feel it normally, but the moment it presses against your skin, it draws blood. The bedroom door clicked softly. Liam walked in. He kept his steps light, walking over to the bed. Seeing my eyes open, he paused for a second, then smiled. He leaned over, brushing my hair. "Did I wake you?" His fingertips carried the outdoor chill. I instinctively turned my head, avoiding his touch. His hand hung in midair for a second before he casually withdrew it, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Is not your flight at 6 a.m.? Why are you packing so early?" I asked, my voice carrying the hoarseness of just waking up. "I was afraid I would forget something, so Arthur helped me pack to save you the trouble." He spoke so naturally, reaching over to grab his watch from the nightstand. The sharp click of the watch clasp fastening was exceptionally loud in the quiet room. I did not reply. I sat up, threw off the covers, and got out of bed. The rug still felt cold against my feet. I walked into the master bathroom and pushed the door open. The vanity was spotless. My skincare products were lined up perfectly by height. The toothbrushes in the holder were facing the exact same angle, and the glass of room temperature water was waiting there, poured perfectly by Arthur every single morning before dawn. 7 years, every single day without fail. I used to think this was thoughtful. I thought it meant stability. Now, holding that glass of water, my fingertips pressed against the glass, I only felt a terrifying sense of dread. I looked at myself in the mirror. My face was a bit pale, with dark circles under my eyes from poor sleep. My hand subconsciously moved to my lower stomach. The gesture was incredibly light, as if afraid to startle something. I had just found out last week, 6 weeks pregnant. I had not told anyone, including Liam. I had planned to wait until he returned from this business trip to give him a surprise. For 7 years out of marriage, he always said his startup company was not stable enough, that there was no rush to have kids. I waited. I waited 7 years, and finally, this little life arrived. I had even secretly thought of several names. I imagined how thrilled he would be when he found out. I imagined our days as a family of three, but now, those expectations were like a soap bubble pricked by a needle, shattering at the slightest touch. I took a sip of the water. It slid down my throat, carrying a very faint, almost imperceptible bitterness. In the past, I always assumed it was just the taste of the water filter and never paid it any mind. It was not until I got my lab results back last week, and the doctor asked if I had been taking any strange supplements because my endocrine hormone levels were highly abnormal, that I suddenly remembered this lingering, bitter taste. By the time I went downstairs, the sky was just turning a pale gray. The morning fog drifted in through the floor-to-ceiling windows, carrying the faint scent of the climbing roses from the garden. Breakfast was already laid out in the dining room. Liam's favorite eggs Benedict, the yolk perfectly runny, alongside a glass of freshly squeezed orange juice. In front of me was a bowl of warm oatmeal with maple syrup and fresh berries, exactly how I liked it. Arthur stood by the dining table in his immaculate navy blue uniform, his hair combed neatly without a single strand out of place. Seeing me come down, he bowed slightly, his voice gentle. "Good morning, ma'am. Breakfast is ready. It is the perfect temperature. Please, sit." 7 years, he was always like this. Respectful, meticulous, flawless. I looked at him, nodded, pulled out a chair, and sat down. Liam was already seated, holding his iPhone, his thumbs flying rapidly across the screen. His brows were slightly furrowed, as if dealing with some urgent crisis. I sat there for a long time before he finally looked up, flashing me a smile. "The oatmeal is getting cold. Eat up." Then he looked right back down at his phone, his fingers never stopping. The meal was incredibly quiet, save for the clinking of silverware against porcelain and the rapid tapping of Liam answering emails. I kept my head down, eating the oatmeal, but the sweet maple flavor tasted like ash in my mouth. "I thought you were not going to London until next month. Why the sudden change?" I set down my spoon and looked at him. His typing fingers paused. He looked up at me, his gaze shifting slightly, avoiding direct eye contact. He picked up his coffee, took a sip, and said, "The European partners changed the schedule last minute. They are rushing things, so I have no choice. It is just 2 weeks. I will be back soon." I did not respond. I just looked at him. Whenever he lied, he had a subconscious habit of touching his earlobe. He did not even know he did it, but I had memorized it over 7 years. He just touched it. "The roses in the garden need pruning. I will handle it when I get back," he said, changing the subject, glancing out the window at the rose trellises. New buds were already sprouting from the branches Arthur had pruned in the winter, waiting to bloom in the spring. I still did not reply. I lowered my head and kept eating. The oatmeal had cooled down, sliding down my throat with a heavy, thick texture. It was past 5 a.m. when we finished breakfast. The sky was a bit brighter, but the fog had thickened. The oak trees outside were wrapped in the mist, showing only blurry outlines. The private car service pulled up to the driveway, its headlights blooming into 2 warm yellow halos in the fog. Liam grabbed the handle of his suitcase to stand up. Arthur immediately rushed over, taking the luggage from his hand. "Let me get that, sir. Do not strain yourself." His movements were as natural as if he had done them 1,000 times. Liam did not refuse, letting go and allowing Arthur to stride toward the door with the large suitcase. I stood there watching them. Arthur knew better than I did that the left rear wheel of that suitcase stuck a little and needed to be lifted over the threshold. He knew better than I did that Liam's antacids and bandages were packed in the front zipper compartment. He knew far better than I did every single item Liam needed for this trip. I, the lawful wife, looked like a total outsider. The ride to JFK Airport was dead silent. Liam sat in the front passenger seat. I sat in the back. The space between us felt like an uncrossable river. The driver focused on the road. The fog was heavy, and the wipers occasionally swiped across the windshield to clear the condensation. The bare branches of the sycamore trees along the highway flashed by in the mist, impossible to see clearly. I leaned against the window, my hand gently resting on my stomach, my mind a tangled mess. On one side was the baby I had just discovered, the miracle I had anticipated for 7 years. On the other side was Liam's abnormal behavior, Arthur's unsettling perfection, and the dark undercurrents hidden beneath our peaceful life that I could not decipher. I even secretly wondered if the two of them had some twisted, illicit relationship. After all, they spent every day together. Arthur managed his food, clothing, and schedule. He spent more time with Liam than I did. That vintage pearl brooch I had been searching for, the only heirloom my late mother left me. I had placed it safely in my velvet jewelry box, yet I saw it tucked in the mesh lining of Liam's suitcase earlier. I had asked Arthur about it, and he claimed he had never seen it. But besides him, no one else touched my jewelry box, and no one else casually touched Liam's luggage. The more I thought about it, the deeper my heart sank. like plummeting into ice water. We arrived at Terminal 4 right at 5:40 a.m. Baggage drop went smoothly. At the TSA security checkpoint, Liam stopped, turned around, and hugged me. His embrace was incredibly light, just a superficial wrap of his arms around my back, 2 quick pats like a required formality. "Be good at home. Call me if you need anything. Arthur will take good care of you," he whispered in my ear. His voice was low. "Always, Arthur." The invisible needle in my heart stabbed me fiercely again. I did not hug him back. I just nodded and said, "Have a safe flight." He let go of me, smiled, turned, and walked into the security line without looking back. His steps were fast, his figure quickly melting into the crowds of the airport, swallowed by the morning fog as if he had never existed at all. I stood in place, staring at the direction he vanished in for a long time. It was not until the overhead speakers announced the final boarding call for his flight that I turned and walked out of the terminal. On the drive back to Westchester, the fog slowly lifted. The sun came out. Golden sunlight pierced through the clouds and hit the asphalt, blindingly bright. I drove my car, playing back the details of the past 6 months in my head over and over again. All the anomalies I had brushed off were now playing frame by frame like a movie before my eyes. 3 months ago, he started coming home late constantly, always smelling of whiskey. The study door was always locked. He had never locked the study before. 2 months ago, he changed his iPhone passcode. It used to be our wedding anniversary. I tried it. It did not work. He never left his phone on the kitchen counter anymore, taking it into the bathroom, even when he showered. 1 month ago, I got up in the middle of the night for water and saw the study light on. The door was locked. I assumed he was inside. When the door opened, it was Arthur. He was sitting at Liam's iMac. Seeing me, he frantically closed the browser windows, his face turning pale. He said, "Ma'am, I saw the light was left on, so I came into dust." But I clearly saw the monitor glowing, his hand resting on the mouse. It did not look like he was cleaning at all. And then there was that daily glass of water, that faint, bitter taste, the missing pearl brooch that miraculously appeared in his luggage, the itinerary he told Arthur about in advance but kept a secret from me. All these details strung together like a net, wrapping me so tightly I could not breathe. I could only arrive at the ugliest, yet most logical conclusion. He and Arthur were having an affair. I pulled into the garage and turned off the engine. I sat in the car in complete silence for 10 minutes before opening the door and walking into the house. The sprawling 4,000-square-foot house was dead quiet. Only Arthur was in the living room, holding a microfiber cloth, wiping the mahogany coffee table. He was wiping it meticulously, cleaning every carved crevice along the edges. Seeing me walk in, he immediately put down the cloth, walked over quickly, and took my purse with a warm smile. "Welcome home, ma'am." Mr. Liam boarded smoothly, I presume. "I brewed some coffee for you. Your favorite Kona roast. It is at the perfect temperature." I did not say a word. I swapped my shoes for slippers, walked over to the living room sofa, and sat down. The sunlight poured in through the floor-to-ceiling windows, striking the polished marble floor with a blinding glare. Arthur quickly brought the coffee and set it on the table in front of me. Faint steam rose from the white porcelain cup. The rich aroma drifted over, the exact scent I had smelled for 7 years. I stared at the coffee without touching it, then looked up at Arthur standing nearby. He still had that respectful, flawless posture, his hands at his sides, standing perfectly straight, just like every other day for the past 7 years. "Arthur, you have been with us for 7 years now, haven't you?" I spoke, my voice so calm it held absolutely zero emotion. He froze for a second, then nodded. "Yes, ma'am. 7 years and 3 months. I started working here a month before you and Mr. Liam got married. Time flies." I nodded, reached for the manila folder next to me, pulled out the termination notice I had printed and signed earlier, and slid it gently toward him. "This is your termination notice. I will pay your salary through the end of the month, and I am adding a full year's severance pay as compensation. You can pack your things and leave today." I thought he would accept it calmly. I thought he was waiting for this day. I thought he would politely agree, as he always did, then pack up and walk out. Instead, all the color drained from his face. His eyes widened in shock, staring intensely at the paper. Then he snapped his head up to look at me, his eyes filled with absolute horror and panic. "Ma'am, why? Did I do something wrong? Tell me. I will fix it. I promise I will fix it. You did everything perfectly." I looked at him, my tone unwavering. "For 7 years, you kept this house running flawlessly. You never made a single mistake. It is just that I have decided this house no longer needs a manager. Ma'am, did Mr. Liam say something? Or did I offend you somehow? Please tell me. I really cannot leave." His lips began to tremble, and his voice cracked with tears. "Mr. Liam is not home. I cannot rest easy leaving you here all alone. If I leave, who will take care of you? I can take care of myself. You do not need to worry about it." I leaned back against the sofa, watching him, a fire slowly igniting in my chest. Even now, he was still pretending, still acting, as if he was entirely devoted to my well-being. "Pack your things. Be out of here by the afternoon." He looked at me, and tears suddenly spilled from his eyes. Then his knees bent, and with a heavy thud, he dropped straight down onto the freezing marble floor. The sound was loud, echoing through the cavernous living room. I jumped, instinctively standing up, and shouted, "What are you doing? Get up!" He did not get up. He just stayed, planted on his knees, looking up at me, tears streaming down his face, splashing onto the marble and leaving small wet marks. His lips quivered for a long time before he finally choked out the words that drove into my heart like an ice pick, sending a paralyzing chill up my spine. "Ma'am, you cannot make me leave. If I do, the baby in your belly will not survive. Mr. Liam has been having me slip medication into your drinks for the past 6 months." I stood exactly where I was, feeling as though I had been nailed to the marble floor. My hand bumped the coffee cup. Scalding hot coffee sloshed over the rim, splashing onto the cream cashmere rug, leaving a massive, dark brown stain like an unwashable scar. My ears were ringing, like 1,000 bees buzzing inside my head. The sunlight was pouring down, bathing my body in light, but all I felt was cold. A bone-deep cold radiating from the marrow out. What did you say?" My voice was trembling so violently I could barely form the words. I could not even stand straight anymore. I grabbed the back of the sofa just to keep myself from collapsing. Arthur knelt on the floor, shaking uncontrollably, his forehead pressing against the cold marble. His voice was choked with sobs. "Ma'am, I am so sorry. I failed you. I wanted to tell you for so long, but I was terrified. Mr. Liam threatened me. He said if I breathed a word, he would make sure I could never work in this state again, and he would pull Kevin out of NYU so my son could never finish his degree. I am so sorry, ma'am." He slammed his forehead against the floor, making a dull, heavy sound. Again and again, like he was slamming it directly against my heart. I stared at him, entirely unable to speak. My brain kept replaying the sentence he had just spoken on a loop. "Mr. Liam has been having me slip medication into your drinks for the past 6 months. 6 months. So the faint, bitter taste in that glass of water was not my imagination. So my constant fatigue, weakness, and pale complexion over the last 6 months were not just the anemia the doctor suggested. So the baby I had prayed for over 7 years was targeted for destruction by its own biological father from the very beginning. What medication?" I gripped the sofa and slowly lowered myself onto the cushions. My voice sounded like coarse sandpaper. Arthur raised his head. His face was covered in tears and mucus. His hair was a mess, strands sticking to his wet face. He looked nothing like the immaculate, proper butler he always was. It was a white powder. 6 months ago, Mr. Liam came to me and gave me a bottle. He told me it was a vitamin supplement for blood circulation, that it was good for your health. He told me to put it in your morning water and your coffee every single day. He said I could never skip a dose. His voice was shaking violently, crying as he spoke. At first, I did not think much of it. Mr. Liam is my employer. I did not dare disobey him. I did exactly as he asked, putting a tiny amount in your water. But later, I saw you getting more and more lethargic. You were always sleepy, your face looking worse by the day. I knew something was wrong. I secretly took some of the leftover powder to a pharmacist in town. The pharmacist told me that taking this drug long-term would wreck a woman's endocrine system, cause infertility, and even if she got pregnant, it would induce a miscarriage. It would permanently damage her body. He cried even harder at this point, pressing his head to the floor again. "Ma'am, when I found out, my soul left my body. I wanted to tell you, but Mr. Liam found out. He called me into the study, cursed me out, and threatened that if I dared say a word to you, he would fire me on the spot and send people to ruin Kevin's life at college so he could never graduate. Kevin had just started his freshman year. He worked so hard to get into that school. I could not ruin my son's life, ma'am." He looked up at me, his eyes filled with overwhelming guilt and despair. "I had no choice. I could only hide it from you. But every day when I prepared your drinks, I secretly used less and less of the powder. I was so terrified of really ruining your health. I have lived in agony every single day. I cannot eat. I cannot sleep. I am so sorry, ma'am." I sat on the sofa listening to him, my fingers digging into the upholstery so hard they went numb. My mind was completely blank, as if someone had taken a baseball bat to the back of my head. I could not think. I could only remember that daily glass of warm water, that faint bitter taste spreading over my tongue, a bitterness that made me want to vomit. 7 years of marriage. Sharing a bed for 7 years? I thought he was my safe harbor, shielding me from the storm. I never imagined that every storm in my life was created by him. He did not just want to ruin my life and steal everything I owned. He wanted to destroy my body. He wanted to ensure I could never have children. He wanted to leave me absolutely no way out. I did not even dare to think about what would have happened if I had not found out about the pregnancy early. If I had not fired Arthur today. If I had continued drinking that poisoned water. What would have been the fate of this baby I had waited 7 years for? Why is he doing this? I spoke, my voice so chillingly calm it surprised even myself. I did not cry. I did not scream. I just felt a massive, hollow void in my chest, as if a chunk of my soul had been carved out. I do not know, ma'am. I swear I do not know. Arthur shook his head, crying. Mister, Liam never told me anything about his business. All I know is that over the past 6 months, he was constantly in the study late at night making phone calls. He kept his voice very low. When I walked by, I would occasionally catch phrases like, missing funds, massive holes, and cannot hide it anymore. He also went out to meet some very shady people. He always came back looking furious, sometimes throwing things around the room. He paused, sniffled, and continued. And ma'am, Mr. Liam is not going to London for business. The flights he booked are to Panama, with several layovers to hide his trail. He lied to you. Before he left, he told me that as soon as his plane took off, I was to pack up all his belongings in the house and throw away anything useless. That is when I knew something was horribly wrong. Once he left, he never intended to come back. My heart sank another foot. Never intended to come back. So he had planned his escape all along. He was going to leave me here alone to face the catastrophic mess he left behind. What else? What else did he do? I looked at him, asking word by word. Arthur bit his lip, as if making a final, desperate decision. He looked up at me. Ma'am, your house, the historic brownstone in Brooklyn your mother left you. Mr. Liam took your ID and used it to take out a second mortgage on it. And the savings in your Chase bank accounts. Mr. Liam transferred every last cent using your phone while you were asleep. There is nothing left. I did not know he took your ID to mortgage the house. He told me he was setting up some insurance policy for you and needed your license. I got it out of your purse for him. It was not until I was cleaning the study later and saw the mortgage documents and the wire transfer receipts that I realized he had drained you of everything. And that pearl brooch, the one your mother left you, I did not steal it. Mr. Liam told me to pack it. He claimed he was taking it to a jeweler in the city to have it polished. I only found out later that he pawned it for cash. I was too scared to tell you, so I lied and said I had not seen it. I am so sorry, ma'am. Every word he spoke was a dagger plunging directly into my heart. The Brooklyn brownstone my mother left me was my only premarital asset. It was my absolute last safety net, and he secretly mortgaged it. The $300,000 I had saved from working, plus what my mother left me. He transferred every penny. The stable life I thought I had. The happy marriage I believed in. From the very beginning, it was nothing but a meticulously crafted scam. He built a greenhouse around me, raising me inside, stripping me of my ability to survive on my own, stripping me of my defenses, and then, while I was completely unaware, he pulled the floorboards out from under me, refusing to leave me even a single plank to float on. Did he leave me anything at all? I asked after a long silence. Yes. In the bottom drawer of his study desk, he left an envelope for you, along with some documents. He told me to give them to you only after his plane was in the air, Arthur said quickly, using his hands to push himself off the floor. His legs were numb, and he swayed, almost falling back to his knees. I will get it for you, ma'am. I will go get it right now. He stumbled as he ran toward the study. He quickly returned with a white envelope and a manila folder, handing them to me. My name was written on the envelope. It was Liam's handwriting. I knew it well. 7 years ago, he wrote me love letters with this handwriting. Our wedding invitations were written by him. Every year on my birthday, the cards were written in this exact script. I used to think his handwriting was beautiful, bold, and strong. Now, looking at it, it just made my eyes burn. I tore open the envelope. Inside was a single, thin piece of paper with just a few lines of text. Grace, I am sorry. The company is bankrupt. I owe a massive amount of money and cannot pay it back. I have to leave. I mortgaged the house and took the savings. I am sorry I did not tell you. Let's get a divorce. I have already signed the divorce papers. They are with my attorney. Call him to process it. Do not look for me. You will not find me. Take care of yourself. Liam. Just these few lines. So weightless. Exactly like the man himself. No sense of responsibility, no genuine remorse. Just a hollow, "I am sorry," as if that could erase 7 years of love, erase all the trauma he inflicted on me, erase every crime he committed. I held the letter, my hands shaking uncontrollably. The edges of the paper crinkled under my tight grip. Finally, the tears broke free, falling onto the paper, blurring the black ink into messy smudges. Arthur stood beside me, crying even harder. "Ma'am, please do not cry. You are pregnant. You cannot upset yourself like this. It is bad for your health. It is all my fault. If I had told you sooner, this would never have happened. You can hit me. You can curse at me. Just please do not hold it all inside." I raised my head, wiped the tears from my face, took a deep breath, and said, "Get up. The floor is cold." He froze, too afraid to move, looking at me in shock. I said, "Get up," I repeated, my voice steady. "I do not blame you. You were blackmailed." Only then did he slowly stand up. His legs were so numb he had to hold onto the sofa armrest for a long time to steady himself. He kept his head down, not daring to look at me, like a child who had done something terribly wrong. Both of his hands gripped the hem of his uniform tightly, his whole body shaking. I looked at the coffee on the table. It had gone completely cold. At the bottom of the white porcelain cup lay a fine layer of brown residue. That was the poison, the drug I had been consuming for 6 months that nearly destroyed my life and my child's. "Did you put it in every day? You never stopped?" I asked, staring at the cup. "Yes, mister. Liam was always watching me. I did not dare stop." He nodded, his voice incredibly quiet, filled with shame. "But every time, I only put in a tiny trace amount. Much less than what Mr. Liam ordered me to use. I was terrified of really harming you and the baby. I am so sorry, ma'am." I did not speak. I gently placed my hand over my stomach. The movement was incredibly light and careful. 6 weeks. The baby was only the size of a sweet pea, resting quietly inside me. Its biological father had exhausted every evil method to prevent it from entering this world, but it had fought its way here anyway. It came to me. "Do not be afraid, baby," I whispered in my heart. "Mommy is here. Mommy will absolutely protect you." Outside the window, the sun climbed higher, shining through the glass onto the rose trellises in the yard. The newly sprouted buds looked so tender they could drip water. The roses Arthur had cultivated for 7 years would burst into spectacular bloom every spring. Red, pink, yellow, white, a riot of vibrant life. I always used to think that garden full of flowers was the symbol of our thriving, passionate life. Only now did I realize that no matter how beautifully those flowers bloomed, it was all an illusion. The roots were completely rotten. I leaned back on the sofa and closed my eyes. When I opened them again, there were no more tears. Liam ran away. "Fine. I will clean up the catastrophic mess he left behind. He drained my savings. Fine. I can earn it back. He tried to kill my child. Fine. I will fight with everything I have to protect my baby and watch them grow up safe and healthy." For 7 years, I was a dependent vine, relying entirely on Liam to survive. Now that he had taken an axe to the vine, I realized I was not just a weak plant clinging to someone else. I could put down my own roots. I could grow my own branches. I could hold up the sky all by myself. "Arthur," I spoke, looking at the man standing beside me. He snapped his head up, his eyes filled with tension. "Yes, ma'am?" The termination notice is void. I looked at him, speaking word by word. "You stay. You will continue to work in this house, but from now on, I am the one giving the orders." He was stunned. His eyes went wide, staring at me, unable to process what I had just said. Tears fell from his eyes again. But this time, it was not out of guilt, but overwhelming emotion. "Ma'am, do you really mean it? You are not kicking me out?" I nodded. "But I have conditions. Every single thing Liam did that you know about, you will tell me in complete detail. Do not hide a single thing. And from now on, absolutely everything in this house runs through me." "You will never listen to another word," Liam says. "Even if he contacts you, you must tell me immediately." I promise everything." He nodded furiously, tears streaming down his face. "Rest assured, ma'am, from now on, I only answer to you. Even if Liam beat me to death, I would never lift a finger for him again. I swear on my life, I will take perfect care of you and the baby to make up for my sins. My life belongs to you." I watched him and stayed quiet. It was not that I did not blame him. He did wrong. His silence nearly killed me and my child. But right now, I did not have a single person around me I could trust. Liam had fled, leaving a mountain of disasters. I was pregnant, I needed care, and I needed help. Arthur felt immense guilt, but he also felt immense gratitude toward me. He was the only person right now who would genuinely, fiercely protect me. 3 years ago, his mother had fallen critically ill and needed surgery. He could not afford the $30,000 medical bill and was crying in the kitchen every day. I handed him a cashier's check without a second thought and saved his mother's life. I never asked him to pay me back. He kept that debt of gratitude in his heart. I knew that. "Go pour that coffee down the sink and throw the mug in the trash," I said, looking at the table. "From now on, every drop of water I drink and every bite of food I eat must be prepared by your own hands. No one else touches it, and nothing else goes into it." "Yes, right away, ma'am," he agreed quickly, walking over to grab the coffee and the mug, rushing into the kitchen. Soon, I heard the sound of running water and the heavy thud of the mug hitting the trash can. I sat on the sofa, my hand still resting on my stomach, looking at the sunlight outside. My heart slowly found its anchor. "Liam, you thought running away would destroy me. You were wrong. I will not collapse like this. Everything you owe me, I will take back. With interest. I will survive. I will give birth to this baby. I will live my life. And I will live it 1,000, a million times better than when you were in it." At 2:00 p.m., I was sitting in the waiting area of an OB/GYN clinic in Manhattan. The smell of antiseptic filled the hallway, mixed with the cries of babies and the sterile electronic voice of the PA system, calling names. People rushed back and forth, noisy and chaotic, yet it gave me a bizarre sense of grounding. This was the real world. Real, messy, breathing life. Not the fragile, fake security Liam had built around me that shattered at a touch. I gripped last week's lab results in my hand. The thin sheet of paper was wrinkled from me holding it so tightly. The words intrauterine pregnancy printed on it had been read by me countless times. With every glance, my heart softened a little and tightened a little. Arthur had insisted on coming with me. At first, I told him no. I told him to stay at the house and pack up all of Liam's belongings, sort out what to trash and what to store. But when I drove out of the gates, I saw in my rearview mirror that he had called an Uber and was trailing right behind me, keeping a careful distance. Terrified something would happen to me, but afraid to make me angry. When I parked at the hospital garage, he ran over immediately. He stood by my car door, looking at me nervously. "Ma'am, I will not bother you. I will just wait right here outside. If you need anything, just call me. You are pregnant, and being alone, I just cannot rest easy." I looked at the deep concern and guilt in his eyes and did not send him away. I just nodded and said, "Come along then." He smiled instantly, like a child given a piece of candy. He rushed to open the door for me and hovered around me the entire walk, carefully shielding me from anyone bumping into me. Now, he was sitting stiffly in the chair next to mine, staring intensely at the digital cue monitor, looking even more nervous than I was. His hands gripped his coat so tightly his knuckles were white. I did not say anything to him. I just kept looking at my lab results, my mind racing. I had not planned on telling the doctor about the abortifacients Liam gave me. I only planned to say I was pregnant, feeling unwell, and wanted a comprehensive check on the baby's development to see if there were any anomalies. I was terrified that if I told the truth, the doctor would urge me to terminate the pregnancy. This was the baby I had wanted for 7 years. It was the only light I had left. I could not lose it. "Grace, please proceed to exam room 3. The PA system called my name. I stood up, and Arthur instantly sprang up too, holding his hands out to support my arm. "Careful, ma'am. I will walk you to the door. You do not need to. Just wait out here." I shook my head and patted his arm. "Do not worry. I will be right out." He nodded and let go, but he still followed me right up to the door of the exam room, only stopping when I walked inside. He stood guard at the door like a sentry. The doctor was a woman in her 50s wearing wire-rimmed glasses, looking very kind. She reviewed my labs from last week, asked me some basic questions, and ordered a full battery of tests. Blood work, an ultrasound, hormone panels, liver function. She ordered everything she could. I took the orders and went through the tests one by one. When they drew blood, the cold needle piercing the vein in my arm did not hurt at all. The agony in my heart made this physical pinch feel like nothing. They drew 5 full vials. The nurse pulled the needle, handed me a cotton ball, and told me to apply pressure. I sat in a chair by the window, pressing on my arm. The sky outside was a brilliant blue, dotted with fluffy white clouds. It was beautiful. I pulled out my iPhone and dialed Liam's number. The automated female voice on the line was ice cold. "The number you have dialed is no longer in service." I opened WhatsApp to send him a message. A red exclamation mark stung my eyes. He had blocked me. He had wiped every single line of communication completely clean. He had prepared his escape meticulously, burning every bridge before he left. I smiled faintly and put my phone away. Good. A clean break. It saved me from harboring any pathetic, misplaced hope. Then I called Chloe. Chloe was my college roommate and my best friend. She was now a ruthless partner at a top Manhattan law firm specializing in family law and financial disputes. During college, we shared a dorm room and were inseparable. She was the only person who vehemently opposed me getting married right out of college to become a housewife. The phone rang twice before she picked up. Chloe's loud, energetic voice blasted through the speaker. Gracie, what made you call me? Is not your beloved Liam flying out for business today? Why aren't you crying at the airport waving a handkerchief? Hearing her familiar voice, my nose stung, and I almost broke down. I took a deep breath to stabilize my voice. Chloe, are you at your office in Midtown? I need to see you. It is incredibly important. Chloe instantly caught the shift in my tone. She dropped the joking manner, her voice going tight. What is wrong, Grace? Are you crying? What happened? Did that bastard Liam do something to you? I cannot explain it over the phone. I am coming to you. I will tell you everything in person. I steadied my voice. Okay. I am at the firm. Come straight up, I will clear my schedule. Drive safe, do not panic. Even if the sky falls, I've got your back. Chloe's fierce, unwavering voice acted like a tranquilizer, settling my racing heart a little. After hanging up, I went to get the ultrasound. The wait was agonizingly long. Finally, it was my turn. Lying on the exam table, the cold gel was squeezed onto my stomach, the transducer gliding back and forth. My whole body was rigid with tension. My hands gripped the paper sheet covering the bed. I stared blankly at the ceiling tiles, barely daring to breathe. Do not be so tense. Just relax, the technician said, keeping her eyes on the monitor. The baby is developing perfectly. You are a little over 6 weeks. There is the gestational sac, the fetal pole, and, right there, the heartbeat. It is very healthy. Hearing those words, my rigid body completely collapsed into the bed. Tears spilled instantly, rolling down my cheeks and dripping onto the exam table. A heartbeat. A fetal pole, very healthy. My baby was so incredibly strong. They were perfectly fine, resting safely inside me. The technician printed an ultrasound photo and handed it to me. On it was a tiny sac, like a little bean, and inside it, a tiny bright speck. That was my child. I held that ultrasound printout, my hands shaking uncontrollably. I looked at it over and over, unable to stop crying. When I walked out of the ultrasound room, Arthur immediately rushed over. Seeing my tear-stained face, he turned ghostly pale. He grabbed my arm, his voice trembling in terror. Ma'am, what is wrong? Is the baby gone? I shook my head, handed him the ultrasound photo, and smiled, even as the tears fell faster. It is okay, Arthur. The baby is perfect. There is a heartbeat. They are healthy. He took the photo. He did not know how to read a sonogram, but seeing the words fetal cardiac activity visible printed on the report, tears burst from his eyes. He covered his mouth, his whole body shaking with emotion. Thank God. Thank God. The baby is okay. This is a miracle. He guided me to sit on a bench, handed me tissues, and helped me wipe my tears. He kept muttering, thank God, acting like an overgrown child, crying and laughing at the same time. The rest of the lab results would not be ready until 4:00 p.m. Arthur and I sat on the hospital bench waiting. The afternoon sun shone through the glass, warming us. I kept my grip on the ultrasound photo, staring at it on a loop, my heart softening into a puddle. Thank you, baby. Thank you for being so strong. Thank you for choosing me to be your mother. Do not worry. Mommy will fight with her life to keep you safe. At 4:00 p.m., all the results came back. I took the stack of papers back into the doctor's office. The doctor flipped through them one by one, her brows slowly knitting together. She looked up at me. The fetus is developing normally so far. The heartbeat is strong, but your endocrine panels are highly irregular. Furthermore, the toxicology screen shows traces of unidentified chemical compounds in your system. It appears to be the result of long-term ingestion. These residues pose a severe risk to fetal development. In severe cases, it can cause congenital defects or trigger a miscarriage. The doctor looked at me, her tone grave. Tell me the truth. What exactly have you been ingesting lately? Have you been taking any unprescribed medications long-term? I was silent for a long time. I still did not reveal Liam's poisoning. I just shook my head. No strange medications. Maybe just some organic health supplements I bought online for energy. I have already thrown them away. Doctor, can this baby be saved? Will there be permanent damage? The doctor sighed. I cannot guarantee there will be no impact. You took whatever it was for too long, and we do not know the exact dosage. You need to immediately cease all unknown supplements. You will need strict, high-frequency prenatal monitoring. We will need to do comprehensive NIPT genetic testing and highly detailed anatomy scans down the line. You cannot skip a single appointment. If we catch any severe anomalies, we will discuss our options then. I nodded, engraving her words into my brain. Yes, I understand. Thank you, doctor. When I walked out, Arthur hurried over, looking terrified. Ma'am, what did the doctor say? Is everything okay? The doctor said the baby is healthy right now, but I have chemical residue in my body. We need strict monitoring from here on out. I looked at him. Every single thing I eat or drink from now on has to be absolutely spotless. No mistakes. I swear it to you, ma'am, Arthur promised instantly, his tone fierce, his eyes brimming with guilt. I will prep everything with my own hands. I will taste test everything before you drink it. Not a single mistake will happen again. It is all my fault. If it were not for me, you would not be suffering, and the baby would not be at risk. Ma'am, I could never repay you in a lifetime. I did not say anything. I just patted his arm. What was done was done. Blaming him would not fix the past. The only thing that mattered now was saving the baby, destroying the landmines Liam left behind, and surviving. By the time we left the hospital, it was past 5:00 p.m. The early spring evening breeze in New York carried a sharp chill, smelling faintly of street food and exhaust fumes. Arthur immediately draped my trench coat over my shoulders. Put this on, ma'am, it is freezing. You cannot catch a cold in your condition. I let him zip up the coat, wrapping me tightly. We got into the car. I did not drive home. I headed straight for Chloe's law firm in Midtown Manhattan. Arthur sat in the passenger seat, silent the whole way, just throwing worried glances at me. After a 40-minute drive, we arrived at the skyscraper housing Chloe's firm. Chloe was already waiting in the lobby, wearing a sharp black suit, her hair pulled into a tight, high ponytail. Seeing me pull up, she marched outside. I parked the car and opened the door. Chloe took one look at me, and her face darkened. Grace, you look skeletal. You look awful. What the hell happened? I looked at her, and the dam I had been holding back all day finally broke. I threw my arms around her neck and broke down, sobbing in the middle of the sidewalk. Chloe held me tight, rubbing my back, not saying a word, letting me cry it out. Once I finally stopped, she held my shoulders and said, "Let's go upstairs." Like I said, the sky falls, I hold it up. Arthur stayed behind, saying he would wait in the car and keep watch. He told me to call his cell if I needed anything. I nodded and followed Chloe up the elevator. We went into her corner office, and she shut the heavy oak doors. It was perfectly quiet inside. Chloe poured me a glass of warm water, set it on the glass desk, and said, "All right, spill. What did that piece of trash Liam do to you?" I took a deep, shuddering breath and laid it all out. The poisoned water, the bankrupt LLC, the massive debt, forging my signature to take out a second mortgage on my Brooklyn brownstone, wire transferring my $300,000 savings, fleeing to Panama, and the pregnancy. I told her everything. The more Chloe listened, the darker her face became. By the end, she slammed her hand down on her desk so hard the pens jumped. "That psychotic son of a bitch! How dare he? That is criminal fraud. It is aggravated assault. I am going to nail him to the wall. I am going to make sure he rots in federal prison. He already ran. He is in Central America. We cannot find him." I looked down, my voice hoarse. "Chloe, what do I do now? My house, my savings, his massive debts. Will the bank come after me? I have a baby now. I cannot let my child be born into a mountain of debt. Do not panic, Grace. I am here." Chloe looked at me, her voice radiating absolute authority. "First, these debts belong to his LLC. They were not used for your marital household, and since he forged your signature, there is no valid spousal guarantee. We will hire a forensic handwriting analyst. Those debts have absolutely nothing to do with you. You will not owe a single cent. Second, the Brooklyn brownstone is a premarital asset left by your mother. We did an airtight prenuptial agreement, remember? Without a notary witnessing your physical signature, that mortgage is legally void. We will sue the lender to quiet title and get the lien removed. The bank cannot touch it. Third, poisoning you is attempted murder or aggravated assault. We are going to the NYPD to file a police report and open a criminal investigation immediately. He could run to the ends of the earth, and the FBI can still issue an Interpol red notice and extradite his ass back to face a judge. And as for him draining your Chase accounts, that was separate property. He had no legal right to it. We will file a civil suit for conversion and theft. Even if he is gone, We can slap a freeze on any domestic assets or shell accounts he left behind to force a clawback. Chloe laid out the legal strategy point by point, sharp and clear. Her words were like a beam of sunlight blasting through my pitch-black world. I thought I had lost everything. I thought I was at a dead end. I never imagined there was still a way out to fight back. Chloe, thank you. I looked at her, fresh tears falling. If it were not for you, I would have no idea what to do. Do not give me that crap. Chloe reached across the desk and squeezed my hand, sighing. I warned you back then. Do not get married right out of Parsons. Do not become a trad wife. Do not put your entire life's survival on a man's shoulders. You didn't listen. Now look at you. You took a brutal fall. Does it hurt? I nodded, a bitter smile on my face. It hurts. It feels like all my bones are shattered. But I am awake now. I will never be that stupid again. Good. It is never too late to wake up. Chloe stared right into my eyes. You are 30 years old. You are insanely talented. You won the top design award in our graduating class. Top architectural firms were fighting over you. You are not just some accessory who needs a man to survive. You trapped yourself in that cage. Now the cage is gone. Climb out of the ashes, build your own life, and get back to your drafting table. You are better than all of them. I looked at her, and the fire in my heart slowly reignited. She was right. I was 30. I spent 4 years mastering interior design. My thesis project won a National Student Design Award. I was not just a helpless housewife. I had real skills. I had talent. I could survive on my own, and I could thrive. When I walked out of the law firm, it was completely dark. The streetlights of Manhattan were blazing, bleeding into a river of neon. Arthur was still in the car. Seeing me exit the revolving doors, he immediately stepped out and opened the passenger door. How did it go, ma'am? Are you okay? I am fine. We can fix everything. I smiled and got into the car. Driving back up to Westchester, we passed a large Whole Foods. The parking lot was packed. The smell of roasted chicken, fresh bread, and the noise of suburban families arguing over groceries drifted into the air. Arthur looked at me. Ma'am, let us go buy some groceries. You haven't had a proper meal all day. I will make something light and nutritious. I will make a hearty chicken noodle soup with fresh vegetables to build your strength. You have to eat for the baby. I nodded. Okay. We parked and walked into the brightly lit supermarket. It was bustling. The smell of fresh basil, organic strawberries, and baking bread hit me. It was the truest essence of normal human life. I rarely went grocery shopping before. Arthur handled all the ordering and stocking. I never had to think about it. Walking down the aisles now, watching people push carts and debate over pasta brands, I felt like I was truly, physically alive. Arthur walked beside me, his arm hovering defensively to make sure no speeding carts bumped into me. He navigated the aisles like a pro, picking out the freshest organic chicken, asparagus, cherry tomatoes, and strawberries. He chatted with the butcher, securing the best cuts of meat, a bright smile on his face. I followed behind him, watching his back, feeling a strange warmth in my chest. I used to think my sense of home came from Liam. Now I knew the warmth of that house, the actual life in it, had been maintained entirely by the man standing in front of me. We drove home. When we pulled into the driveway, the evening wind rustled the rose trellises. Arthur carried the groceries into the kitchen, and soon, the sound of the exhaust fan, the clatter of pots and pans, and the bubbling of boiling water filled the air. I sat on the living room sofa, gripping the ultrasound photo, looking at the warm lights glowing in the kitchen, listening to the comforting noises. I rested my hand on my stomach. Don't be afraid, baby. Mommy is here. We still have a home. Mommy will give you a warm, safe home. I will love you and protect you as you grow. Our lives are going to get better and better. Life is like the climbing roses in the yard. It sprouts, it grows, and slowly, it takes shape. After Liam fled, the massive 4,000-square-foot house suddenly felt empty. Arthur packed up all his belongings, suits, shoes, books, golf clubs into a dozen cardboard boxes and stacked them in the back of the garage. I didn't throw them out, and I didn't look at them. I just left them there, like a piece of irrelevant garbage from a past life. Chloe moved incredibly fast. The very next day, she filed the police reports for aggravated assault and wire fraud. Simultaneously, she filed motions in civil court to invalidate the forged mortgage on my Brooklyn property and to trace the stolen $300,000. I thought life would slowly find its peace, but trouble found us anyway. One morning, I had just woken up and was sitting at the kitchen island, eating a bowl of oatmeal Arthur had made, when aggressive, violent pounding erupted at the front door. Bang, 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 the heavy oak door rattled in its frame. It carried the undeniable aggression of someone looking for a fight. Arthur put down a plate of sliced fruit and hurried to open the door. The moment he unlatched it, it was violently shoved open. He stumbled backward, nearly falling. I instantly stood up, caught his arm to steady him, and looked at the doorway. 4 men walked in. They were dressed in heavy leather jackets, tattoos creeping up their necks, looking like absolute thugs. The leader had a jagged scar across his cheek. His eyes were vicious. He scanned the living room and barked, "Where is that piece of trash, Liam? Tell him to get his ass out here. He owes us $2 million. He thinks he can just run? Not a chance in hell." Arthur stepped in front of me, spreading his arms to shield me. "What do you think you are doing?" "This is trespassing. We will call the police." "Call the cops?" The scarred man laughed, stepping closer, glaring at Arthur. "He borrowed our money, and we are here to collect. It is the law of the jungle. Even the cops cannot stop a debt collection." "Where is Liam? Drag him out." "Liam fled the country. He is not here." I pulled Arthur gently aside and stepped forward, staring directly at the scarred man. My voice was completely calm, not a trace of panic. I thought I would be terrified. I thought I would shake and cry. But I didn't. When they barged in, my very first instinct was to shield my stomach, to protect my baby. I was a mother now. I could not be afraid. If I showed fear, my child would have no one to rely on. "Fled?" The scarred man paused, then sneered at me. He ran. "That is fine. You are his wife. His debts belong to you. You're his wife, so you're on the hook. That is how the world works. We are not leaving this house without our money. His debts have absolutely nothing to do with me." I stared at him, pronouncing every word sharply. "First, this money is debt belonging to his corporate LLC. It was not used for our marital expenses. I had no knowledge of it, and I did not sign a personal guarantee. Legally, I owe you nothing. Second, we are already in the middle of divorce proceedings. His personal liabilities are his alone. Third, if you stay in my house and cause a scene, I am calling 911 right now to have you arrested for home invasion, trespassing, and threatening a pregnant woman. I am pregnant. If the stress you cause harms my child in any way, I guarantee you will spend the next decade in Rikers Island, and not a single one of your bosses will save you." I maintained dead eye contact with him the entire time. I did not blink. My hand rested firmly on my stomach, guarding my child. My mind was made of steel. The scarred man stared at me, dumbfounded. He probably never expected a pregnant woman, facing down 4 massive thugs, to show absolutely zero fear and rattle off legal statutes with such icy precision. The thugs behind him exchanged uneasy glances, silent. "Do not give me that legal bullshit." The scarred man snapped out of it, snarling aggressively. "His name is on the deed. If he cannot pay, we are seizing this house. Today, you either write a check or we take the property. This property is my sole, premarital asset. Liam's name is not on the deed." I looked at him, my tone unwavering. "We have a prenuptial agreement on file." His attempt to mortgage this house lacked my notarized signature, rendering it entirely fraudulent and legally void. "We have already filed a federal lawsuit. A judge will issue an injunction any day now. If you so much as touch a fixture in this house, you are committing a felony. And the FBI will get involved. Furthermore, you are loan sharks running an unlicensed lending operation. That is racketeering." I looked at him, continuing. "If you want your money legally, go file a lawsuit in civil court. I trust the New York State judicial system to issue a fair ruling, but if you try to intimidate a pregnant woman in her own home one more time, I am dialing 911, and you can explain your business model to the detectives." I picked up my iPhone from the counter and brought up the keypad to dial 911. Wait, put the phone down!" The scarred man immediately held up his hands, his face shifting. Shady private lenders despised police attention. If a squad car rolled up, they would be the ones in handcuffs. Plus, I was pregnant. If things escalated and I miscarried, it would turn into a massive federal nightmare they could not afford. He glared at me for a long second, then gritted his teeth. "Fine. You got guts, lady. But I am telling you, Liam's debt doesn't just vanish. We will be back. Until we find him, we are not dropping this." He waved his hand, leading the cursing thugs out the door. The heavy door slammed shut with a massive bang, rattling the windows. Once they were gone, Arthur finally exhaled, his legs giving out as he collapsed into a dining chair. His face was chalk white, his hands trembling. "Ma'am, you scared me to death. There were 4 of them, looking like killers. How were you not terrified? What if they got violent?" I poured him a glass of water and forced a small smile. "What good does being afraid do? Does fear make them leave? I am a mother now. I cannot afford to be scared. If I panic, who protects me and the baby?" saying that. The reality was my back was drenched in cold sweat. Facing them down, my heart was hammering in my throat, but I could not show it. The second I showed weakness, they would have eaten me alive. I was my baby's only shield. I could not break. Arthur gripped my hand. His hands were freezing. He looked at me, his eyes full of heartbreak. You have suffered so much, ma'am. If they ever come back, you stay upstairs. Let me handle them. I am an old man. Let them kill me if they want to. You cannot take this kind of stress in your condition. I patted his hand and stayed silent, but a profound warmth spread through my chest. In my darkest, most desperate hour, having someone fiercely, genuinely willing to protect me, it was a blessing. After that day, I completely overhauled the estate's ADT security system. We installed high-def cameras at every angle and hired 2 private armed security guards for the front gate. The loan sharks tried to show up 2 more times, but the guards immediately blocked them from the property. Realizing they could not intimidate me, they eventually gave up and vanished. Chloe's lawsuits moved with lightning speed. The forensic handwriting analysis confirmed Liam had forged my signature on the loan documents. The judge ruled that all of Liam's corporate debts were solely his liability. I was completely shielded from creditors. The property lawsuit was also a total victory. The judge ruled the mortgage on my Brooklyn brownstone fraudulent and void. The title was cleared, and the house remained entirely mine. The only regret was my $300,000 savings and the vintage pearl brooch. Because Liam had successfully vanished into Central America, leaving no domestic assets behind, the money was currently unrecoverable. But I was deeply satisfied. I kept my houses. I was cleared of millions in debt. My baby and I were safe. That was enough. The money I lost, I could earn back. It was not the end of the world. The day all the legal battles concluded, Chloe, Arthur, and I had dinner at the house. Arthur cooked an absolute feast, a beautiful roast chicken, garlic butter, steak, and roasted vegetables. Chloe brought a bottle of expensive non-alcoholic sparkling cider. The 3 of us sat at the dining table and raised our glasses. Cheers to you, Gracie. You finally crushed that bastard and got a clean slate. Chloe smiled at me, her eyes shining with pride. From now on, live your life on your own terms. Have a beautiful baby. Rebuild your design empire. The best is yet to come. Thank you. Chloe. I smiled back, tears in my eyes. If it were not for you, I would have been destroyed. Do not even mention it. Chloe squeezed my shoulder. Whenever you need me, call. I will always be your impenetrable shield. Arthur raised his glass, his eyes red. Ma'am, a toast to you. I swear I will spend the rest of my days taking care of you and the baby. Our lives are going to get better every single day. I nodded, clinking my glass with theirs. I took a sip of the sparkling cider. It was sweet, crisp, and refreshing. As it slid down my throat, my heart felt incredibly full. That evening, after Chloe left, I sat out on the patio by the rose trellis, enjoying the breeze. Spring was in full swing. The climbing roses were covered in thick green leaves, and fat flower buds were ready to burst open. A soft wind rustled the leaves, carrying a fresh, floral scent. My stomach was starting to show. It formed a small, firm bump. I placed my hands on it, feeling the tiny life inside resting peacefully. The catastrophic mess Liam left behind had finally been cleaned up. The dust had settled. This massive, empty house finally felt like a home again. Not the fake, fragile illusion Liam built, but a real, solid, secure home that belonged entirely to me. From that day on, I dusted off my interior design career. I converted the study. I had Arthur clear out every trace of Liam. I brought in an angled drafting table, a high-end iMac, an iPad Pro, and stacks of architectural design books. I dug out my old college textbooks and my award-winning senior thesis. I had been out of the industry for 7 years. AutoCAD and Revit had updated drastically. New design philosophies and sustainable materials had taken over the market. I did not know any of it, so I started from scratch. I bought online courses, watched tutorials, and studied architectural digests. I stayed up late every night studying. Arthur kept me company. He brought me warm milk, sliced apples, and kept quiet so as not to disturb me. He would sit by the window reading a book or knitting a baby blanket, waiting until I was done to turn off the lights. At first, I only took tiny gigs. I helped friends of friends design layouts for small studio apartments in the city. I charged barely anything, sometimes doing it for free just to build a portfolio and get my skills back. I treated every tiny job like a masterpiece. Even for a 400 square foot studio, I would commute into the city, visit the site repeatedly, communicate constantly with the clients, and revise my renders a dozen times until it was perfect. Slowly, word of mouth spread. More people sought me out. My designs were practical, deeply empathetic to the client's needs, and highly detail-oriented. My pricing was fair. Clients loved me and referred their wealthy friends. My reputation in the local Westchester and NYC area began to solidify. The first time I got paid a real design fee, it was a $3,000 check. It was not a fortune, but it was the first money I had earned with my own two hands in 7 years. The day I deposited that check, I was as excited as a little kid. I drove Arthur to the upscale mall in White Plains and bought him a beautiful, thick navy blue wool peacoat for the coming winter. I also bought a brand new MacBook Pro and had it shipped to his son, Kevin, at NYU. When Arthur held that wool coat, he broke down crying right in the store. He stroked the soft fabric and said, "Ma'am, you did not have to buy me something this expensive. Taking care of you is my job. You worked so hard for this money. You should save it for the baby. You earned this." I smiled at him. If you had not been by my side supporting me, I would have collapsed. I am going to make a lot more money, and I am going to make sure you, Kevin, and the baby all live a wonderful life. He hugged the coat and cried for a long time, like a wronged child finally receiving comfort. Days passed. My belly grew rounder, and my design commissions piled up. My life was incredibly full. Drafting plans, meeting clients, visiting job sites, going to OB/GYN checkups, cooking with Arthur, walking in the garden, and watching the roses grow and bloom. When I went in for my NIPT and anatomy scan, I was so terrified I didn't sleep the night before. Arthur drove me to the clinic. While waiting for the results, his hands were shaking worse than mine. When the results came back, low risk, perfectly normal anatomy, we hugged each other in the hospital hallway, crying and laughing. The baby was so incredibly tough, so good. Every checkup went perfectly. All the metrics were healthy. It was as if the baby knew how hard things had been for Mommy and decided not to cause any trouble. I barely had morning sickness or swelling. I had amazing energy every day. I could eat, sleep, and work without issue. The roses in the yard finally bloomed. The trellises exploded with color. Red, pink, yellow, white, a spectacular, joyous riot of flowers filling the entire garden. When the wind blew, petals drifted down, blanketing the grass. The scent of roses permeated the whole house. I sat on the wicker chair on the patio, looking at the blooming garden, holding my Apple Pencil, sketching a rendering on my iPad. The sun warmed the screen. Arthur brought out a mug of warm milk and set it on the side table. "Take a break, ma'am. Do not overwork yourself. Drink some milk," he said with a smile. "Look, the roses bloomed better this year than they ever have before." I looked up at the vibrant garden, smiled, and nodded. Yes, better than ever. In the past, the flowers bloomed for Liam. They bloomed as a prop for others to see. Now, they bloomed for me, for my baby, for our new life. Liam ran away, and it didn't matter. All I lost was a man who did not love me, and a suffocating, fake cage. What I gained was a rebirth, freedom, a life that truly, entirely belonged to me. Winter in New York arrived fiercely. After a cold autumn rain, the temperature plummeted, and the wind carried a biting chill. The roses lost their leaves, leaving bare, thorny branches. Arthur wrapped every single rose bush in burlap and winterizing mulch. It looked like he was putting them in thick winter coats. He said, "We have to protect them from the frost. That way, next spring, they will bloom even brighter." The house had a gorgeous brick fireplace in the living room that I had designed myself years ago to look rustic and cozy. When oak logs burned in it, the whole room felt wonderfully warm. Since I was pregnant and constantly felt the cold, Arthur kept the fire roaring all day long. The house felt like an eternal spring. I was over 7 months pregnant. My belly was massive, sticking out like a watermelon. Moving around was getting difficult. Bending over to tie my shoes or getting up from the sofa required Arthur's help. Sleeping at night was uncomfortable no matter what position I tried. The baby was incredibly active now. They constantly kicked my ribs or did somersaults, keeping me awake. Arthur would massage my swollen calves and aching lower back every night. His technique was perfect. He had specifically watched YouTube tutorials by physical therapists just to help me. When I could not sleep, he would sit in a chair by the bed and tell me stories about growing up in upstate New York, or funny stories about Kevin when he was a little boy. His voice was soft and rhythmic, coaxing me to sleep like a lullaby. We relied on each other like family. His wife had passed away years ago. His son was living in the city for college, and he was alone in this big suburb. I had lost my husband. My parents had passed away long ago, and I had no other relatives, only the baby in my womb. We were two lonely people who had formed our own unconventional family. The winter days passed slowly, but warmly. Outside, it was a frozen, snow-covered tundra. Inside, the fireplace crackled, radiating heat. I sat on the sofa, knitting a baby sweater. It was pink, tiny, with a little bunny pattern on the front. I had never knitted before. My hands were clumsy, and I could not hold the needles right. I would knit, unravel it, and knit again, pricking my fingers countless times. Arthur sat next to me, teaching me how to purl and stitch. He was surprisingly skilled, his hands moving fast and creating beautiful patterns. Between the two of us, we made tiny sweaters, pants, socks, beanies, and a thick baby blanket, soft, warm, and packed with love. "Look, ma'am, you loop it over like this. The needle goes through here. Otherwise, you get a hole," Arthur instructed patiently, guiding my hands. I learned slowly, but he was never frustrated, teaching me over and over like a patient grandfather. The winter sun shone through the windows, casting a warm glow over us. The oak wood popped and snapped in the fireplace, sending up tiny sparks. The house was peaceful, filled only with the soft click-clack of knitting needles and our quiet conversation. If this is what a quiet, beautiful life looks like, this is exactly it. The first time the baby kicked me hard was late one night. I was lying in bed, just about to drift off, when I suddenly felt a sharp flutter in my stomach. It felt like a little fish swimming quickly, or a feather brushing against the inside of my skin. I bolted upright, stunned, not daring to believe it. A few seconds later, thump, a distinct, solid, gentle kick. I burst into tears. I threw off the covers and didn't even bother with slippers, running out of the bedroom barefoot, yelling, "Arthur! Arthur, come here!" Arthur was in the kitchen prepping a slow-cooked bone broth for the next day. Hearing my shout, he was terrified, immediately killed the stove, and sprinted out. Seeing me standing barefoot in the hallway, pale and crying, he thought I was going into labor early, his face drained of color. "Ma'am, what is wrong? Are you in pain? Are you in labor? I am calling 911. No, no." I laughed, though the tears fell harder. I grabbed his hand and pressed it flat against my stomach. "Arthur, feel it. The baby is moving. They just kicked me." Right on cue, the baby delivered another solid kick. Through my skin, Arthur's hand clearly felt the sharp impact of the movement. He froze completely. Then, a massive smile broke across his face, and tears spilled from his eyes. He kept his hand gently on my stomach, feeling the tiny life moving inside, his voice trembling violently. "They moved. They really moved. Ma'am, the baby is saying hello to you." Oh, what a good, strong baby. That night, the two of us sat on the edge of the bed, our hands resting on my stomach, waiting for the baby to kick again. We were like two kids who had just been given the greatest toy in the world. We were so excited we barely slept the entire night. From that day on, the baby became incredibly active. In the morning, they would kick me to wake me up. When I ate, they would roll around as if tasting the food. When I sat by the fireplace drafting blueprints, they would give me a little jab, as if reminding me to take a break. When I read bedtime stories out loud, they would flutter gently, listening closely. I finally, truly felt the reality that a tiny human being, sharing my blood, was living inside me, accompanying me through the darkest and hardest chapter of my life. They were my light, my absolute weakness, and my impenetrable armor. Right around this time, Chloe called me with breaking news. Liam had been arrested in Central America. He was caught in Panama by Interpol on charges of international wire fraud and using fake passports. The FBI was in the process of extraditing him back to New York. Chloe's voice crackled through the phone. "Gracie, the federal prosecutors have unsealed the indictments here. Aggravated assault, felony wire fraud, identity theft, and forgery. They are throwing the book at him. He is looking at a minimum of 15 to 20 years in federal lockup without parole. He smuggled a message out through his public defender. He wants to see you. He asked if you would be willing to visit him when he lands on MDC Brooklyn." I stood by the window holding the phone, watching the snow falling heavily outside. I listened quietly. My heart didn't skip a single beat. I thought that hearing he was caught would make me ecstatic, vindicated, that I would cry tears of relief, but I didn't. My heart was as placid as a frozen lake, without a single ripple. This man, and the past tied to him, felt like a previous lifetime, utterly irrelevant, not even worth a second thought. "No," I said after a long silence. My voice was perfectly calm. "I have absolutely nothing to say to him. Tell his lawyer to never contact me again. I do not want to hear about his case, and I do not want to know what happens to him." "Understood," Chloe sighed on the other end. "Better you do not see him. It's not worth your time. It would only upset you and ruin your mood. The only thing that matters right now is you staying healthy and delivering a beautiful baby. Nothing else matters." After I hung up, Arthur walked over with a mug of warm milk, He looked at me carefully and asked, "Ma'am, was that news about Mr. Liam?" "Yeah, he got caught. They are extraditing him to face federal charges," I said, taking the mug and sipping the warm milk. It slid down my throat, comforting and hot. "He wanted to see me." I said no. Arthur watched me for a moment before saying, "Good. A man like that does not deserve another second of your time. Your life is so beautiful now, you cannot let him infect it again." I nodded, looking out the window. The snow was coming down in thick, heavy flakes, blanketing the rose trellises, covering the entire garden. Everything was pure, blinding white, as clean as a blank sheet of paper. Liam was nothing but a blizzard that swept through my life. It looked terrifying and bit to the bone. But now, the snow had melted, the sun was out, and he had vanished without a trace. He could never affect me again. That chapter of my life was permanently closed. There would never be a place for him again. Time flew, and the holidays approached. It was Christmas Eve. A massive nor'easter had dumped 2 feet of snow on New York. Everything was white, and the distant sound of church bells and snowplows echoed through the neighborhood. The holiday spirit was everywhere. Kevin was on winter break from NYU. Arthur had debated for days and finally came to me. "Ma'am, Kevin wants me to come to the city for Christmas, but I cannot leave you. Your due date is approaching. You cannot be alone." I told him I am staying here to spend Christmas with you. "Absolutely not," I smiled at him. "You have not spent a proper holiday with your son in a year. It is Christmas. Family needs to be together. Go see him. I will be perfectly fine. I will have Chloe come up to stay with me. She is single anyway." "No, I refuse." Arthur shook his head stubbornly. "Chloe is a guest. She does not know how to take care of you the way I do. You are heavily pregnant. You cannot be left alone with someone who does not know your routines. I am not leaving. I will go see Kevin after the baby is born and you are fully recovered." I argued with him, but he would not budge. Finally, I surrendered and said, "How about this? Invite Kevin up here to spend Christmas with us. The house is huge. We have plenty of guest rooms. It will be fun." He froze, his eyes lighting up instantly. "Really, ma'am? Are you sure? Will that not be an intrusion?" "What intrusion?" I laughed. "The more, the merrier. Christmas is supposed to be loud and happy. Tell him to come up. Tell him to treat this place like home." Arthur was thrilled. He immediately called his son, his voice bursting with joy. On Christmas Eve, the 4 of us, me, Arthur, Kevin, and Chloe, celebrated in the house. Kevin was a polite, slightly shy young man wearing wire-rimmed glasses. He was incredibly respectful, calling me Miss Grace and thanking me profusely for taking such good care of his dad. He even brought up some fresh pastries from a famous bakery in the village. Arthur and Kevin spent the entire afternoon in the kitchen cooking a massive Christmas feast. A perfectly roasted turkey, creamy mashed potatoes, honey-glazed ham, and freshly baked pies filled the table. The aroma was heavenly. The fireplace blazed. The house was toasty. Outside, the blizzard howled, but inside, the massive Christmas tree we decorated twinkled with warm fairy lights. We sat around the dining table, raising our glasses of cider. "Merry Christmas!" we all cheered, laughing. The room was filled with warmth and joy. Arthur looked at me, tears glistening in his eyes. He raised his glass. "Ma'am, Merry Christmas. Thank you for giving us a home. I promise I will be here for you and the baby, and every year is going to be better than the last." I looked at him. I looked at Chloe. I looked at Kevin. I looked at the beautiful Christmas tree. I rested my hand gently on my stomach, and the baby gave me a tiny, soft kick. Tears fell down my face, but my heart was overflowing. It was warm, and it was sweet. I used to think happiness was given to you by a husband, by money, by a massive mansion. Now I knew that true happiness was something you gave yourself. It was the baby in my womb. It was the chosen family around me. It was the peace of mind. It was the absolute, unshakable confidence that no matter what catastrophic storm hit, there would always be people standing by your side, ready to walk through the fire with you. A new year, a new life. My real, beautiful life was just beginning. After January passed, the weather slowly began to thaw. The snow melted. The rose trellises in the yard sprouted tender green shoots. Fat flower buds began to form, waiting for the spring winds to blow so they could burst into bloom. My due date arrived. A week early, I checked into a private maternity suite at Mount Sinai Hospital. Arthur came with me, dragging 2 massive suitcases. He packed baby clothes, formula, diapers, my postpartum pajamas, and every conceivable necessity. He organized everything with absolute perfection, far more meticulous than I was. Chloe came to the hospital every single day, bringing me takeout from my favorite restaurants, handling the hospital paperwork, and hovering around nervously. On my third day in the hospital, at 3:00 a.m., my contractions started. At first, it was a dull ache, like severe period cramps. I could handle it. I did not wake Arthur, who had been on his feet all day and was asleep on the visitor couch. I lay in bed, gripping the bed sheets, gritting my teeth through the pain as I watched the sky outside my window slowly turn light. The pain grew more intense. The intervals grew shorter. It felt like a knife twisting repeatedly inside my abdomen. I was drenched in sweat, my hospital gown soaked through, my lip bleeding from biting it so hard. Arthur woke up, seeing me shaking in agony, pale as a ghost. He panicked. He slammed the call button, screaming for the nurses. The doctor came in, checked, and said I was dilated enough. It was time for the delivery room. As my bed was rolled down the hallway, Arthur jogged alongside, holding my hand, crying uncontrollably. He wiped the sweat from my forehead. "You can do this, ma'am. Do not be afraid. I am right outside the door. You and the baby are going to be perfectly fine." Chloe had rushed over in a taxi. She stood outside the delivery room doors, yelling, "Gracie, you got this. You are a warrior. Arthur and I are right here waiting for you." I looked at them and nodded, unable to speak through the blinding pain. But my heart felt so incredibly strong. I was not alone. I had them. I had my baby. I could do this. Inside the delivery room, the nurses and the doctor surrounded me, guiding my breathing, telling me when to push. The pain reached an unbearable peak, as if my body was being ripped in half. My energy was completely drained. My vision went black repeatedly. There were moments I wanted to give up. But then I thought of the baby inside me. The baby who had survived so many terrifying, dark days with me. The baby I was finally about to meet. I gritted my teeth, gripped the handles of the bed, and pushed with every ounce of strength I had left. "Come on, I see the head. Give me one more big push. You are almost there," the doctor shouted. I took a massive, deep breath, summoned everything I had in my soul, and pushed. And then, a loud, piercing cry shattered the sterile silence of the delivery room. It sounded like a little kitten, yet it was so incredibly loud, so full of powerful, defiant life. I collapsed back onto the bed, completely drained. Tears poured from my eyes, sliding down my cheeks into my hair. I did it. My baby was born. Congratulations, Mom. It is a beautiful little girl. 7 pounds, 2 ounces. She is perfectly healthy, with a great set of lungs. The nurse brought over a tiny, squirming baby wrapped in a pink hospital blanket and held her up for me to see. I lifted my heavy head and looked at this tiny human. Her eyes were squeezed shut, her skin wrinkled like a little old lady, her dark hair damp. Her little mouth opened and closed as she wailed at the top of her lungs. This was my baby, the baby I had waited 7 years for, the baby I nearly died to bring into this world, my daughter. I cried harder. I reached out a trembling finger and gently stroked her soft, warm cheek. She seemed to feel it. She stopped crying, her little mouth rooting toward my finger. My heart instantly melted into an absolute puddle. All the pain, all the suffering, all the injustice of the past year evaporated in a single second. It was worth it. Everything was worth it. The delivery room doors swung open, and Arthur and Chloe rushed in. Seeing me, and seeing the baby in the nurse's arms, they both burst into tears. Arthur ran to my bedside and took my hand. His hands were shaking. He looked at my pale, exhausted face and sobbed, "You did incredible, ma'am. You are so brave. The baby is beautiful, a perfect little princess. She looks exactly like you." Chloe wiped her red eyes, patted my shoulder, and said, "You did it, Gracie. Congratulations, Mama." I looked at them, smiling through my endless tears. I finally had my own family, my own daughter. People who truly, unconditionally, belonged to me. During my postpartum recovery back at the house, Arthur took care of me with astonishing devotion. He was better than any professional maternity nurse. He cooked 6 small, incredibly nutritious meals a day for me, hearty chicken stews, salmon, roasted vegetables, and bone broth, never repeating a recipe. If the baby cried in the middle of the night, he was the first one up to soothe her, change her diaper, and bring her to me for feeding. He refused to let me exert myself, terrified I would hinder my recovery. I thought about her name for a long time. I decided to name her Hope. Hope Grace. Arthur loved the name. He walked around the house constantly cooing, "Hope! Little Hope!" He carried her everywhere, refusing to put her down. Hope loved him too. The moment she was in his arms, she never cried. She would just sleep peacefully, sometimes acting better for him than she did for me. When Hope was 2 weeks old, Chloe brought me an update. Liam had been officially sentenced. The federal judge showed no mercy. For aggravated assault, felony fraud, and forgery, the sentences ran consecutively. He was given 18 years in federal prison without the possibility of early parole. He had begged his lawyer to relay a message. He wanted to see me in Hope. He said he knew he was a monster, that he wanted to apologize to me in person, and that he just wanted to see his daughter once. I refused. Hope and I have absolutely no relation to that man, I told Chloe, my voice entirely flat. I never want to hear his name mentioned in front of me or my daughter ever again. He is not her father. He does not deserve to exist in our lives. Chloe nodded. Got it. He wrote you a letter from jail. Do you want to read it? I didn't even glance at the white envelope in her hand. Throw it in the trash. I don't care to read it, and I don't care what lies he wrote this time. Chloe didn't say another word. She took the letter and left. Liam was permanently erased from the story of my life. The law was making him pay for what he owed me. As for the trauma he caused, I would pave over it with a lifetime of happiness. There would never, ever be a place for him again. When Hope turned 1 month old, I threw a celebration at the house. My college friends, Chloe, and several of my wealthy interior design clients attended. The house was decorated beautifully, filled with pink balloons and framed photos of Hope. Arthur held Hope, dressed in a sharp new suit. Hope wore a tiny pink tulle dress. She was plump and fair, her big eyes wide open, staring curiously at the crowd. She didn't cry or fuss. She was an absolute angel. Everyone gushed over how beautiful and well-behaved she was. I held her, accepting everyone's blessings, sipping sparkling apple cider, smiling, my heart overflowing with absolute bliss. After the party ended and the guests went home, Arthur and I carried Hope out into the garden. Spring was in full glory. The climbing roses had exploded. The trellises were a chaotic, stunning wall of red, pink, and yellow. A gentle breeze blew, and a shower of rose petals cascaded down onto the manicured lawn. The sweet fragrance filled the air. The late afternoon sun was perfect, casting a warm golden glow over us. Hope was sound asleep in my arms, her little mouth making sucking motions, her long eyelashes resting on her cheeks. She was perfect. Arthur stood by the trellis, holding a watering can, smiling broadly. Ma'am, look at them. The roses really did bloom better this year than ever before. They did. I walked over, holding my sleeping daughter. I looked at the sea of flowers. I looked at my baby. I looked at Arthur's happy face, and the warm sun above us. I smiled. A breeze swept past, and a few pink petals drifted down, landing softly on my shoulder. They smelled sweet. My little Hope was born in the spring, in the season when the roses bloom. She was my rebirth, my sunrise, my absolute greatest expectation for the rest of my life. From now on, I will be right beside her. I will watch her grow up, from her first words, to her first steps, to her first day of school, to the day she becomes a woman. I will give her all the love in the universe. I will give her a warm, indestructible home. I will make sure she grows up safe, happy, and entirely free. And I will live my own life to the absolute fullest. I will become the woman I always wanted to be, so I can be a role model for Hope. I will build my design firm into an empire, give her the best life possible, and ensure her childhood is filled with nothing but joy. The catastrophic Hurricane Liam brought into my life had passed. Now, my world was filled only with sunshine, blooming flowers, warmth, and peace. Life was like the roses in the garden. They bloom, they fall, and they bloom again. Year after year, time flying by in a blur of beauty. When Hope turned 1, she spoke her first word. I was sitting on the living room rug, playing with wooden blocks. She pulled herself up by the edge of the sofa, wobbling on her chubby legs. She looked at me, her little mouth opening, and clearly, perfectly said, "Mama." It was soft, sweet, and melted into my ears like cotton candy. I froze, terrified I had imagined it. Tears instantly flooded my eyes. I reached out and pulled her into a tight hug. "Hope, did you say Mama? Say it again. Say it for Mama." She threw her little arms around my neck, rubbed her soft cheek against mine, giggled, and said it again, loud and clear. "Mama!" Arthur was walking out of the kitchen with a plate of sliced strawberries. When he heard it, he nearly dropped the plate. He rushed over, tears streaming down his face, laughing hysterically. "Our little Hope said Mama. She is so smart. What a good girl." That afternoon, the two of us held Hope, making her say Mama for hours. Every time she said it, we would laugh, then cry, acting like two absolute fools. When Hope turned 2, she learned how to run. A tiny blur of energy, her little legs sprinting beneath the rose trellises in the backyard, chasing butterflies and picking up fallen petals, giggling endlessly. Arthur would chase after her, out of breath, yelling, "Hope, Slow down, sweetie. Do not trip. Watch your step. Hope would only run faster, glancing back over her shoulder to make a funny face at him, yelling in her sweet toddler voice, Mr. Arthur, you cannot catch me. I sat on the wicker chair on the patio, watching them. I held my Apple Pencil, drafting a new architectural blueprint. The warm sun bathed the iPad screen, the wind blew, and a rose petal drifted down, landing perfectly on my digital canvas. It smelled like summer. When Hope got tired of running, she would hurl herself into my lap, throwing her arms around my neck, and press a handful of crushed rose petals into my palm. Mama, flowers for you, she would say proudly. I hugged her tight. A soft, tiny, warm little bundle, smelling of baby lotion and fresh roses. My heart melted into absolute peace. My interior design firm was thriving, and life was more beautiful than I ever could have imagined.